Hello and welcome to the January 19th edition of the DRF Players Podcast. This is Mike Hogan here in studio at the DRF offices, joined via Skype by Mr. Peter Thomas Fornatel. Welcome, Pete.
Hello.
And joined via just phone call. So if you're watching on YouTube, you just see a black screen to represent Marcus Hersh. Welcome, Marcus.
Hey, Mike. And a lot of people have described me as a black screen in the past. Or maybe it was a black sheep. I can't remember.
Is it to represent how you feel inside, Marcus?
I don't know what it's. I think it's misguided. That's all I can say.
All right. Well, either way, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
We've got a short one today because we've got a lot of stuff to do. Pete and I were both off yesterday, even though there was a lot of racing. We were watching and following, but we weren't working necessarily. So a lot to catch up on. So we're going to keep this one short. We're going to do a recap of the Eclipse Awards from the weekend. Not really going to tell you anything new. It's more just kind of a discussion in general about the voting and looking forward. Pete's going to do attorney talk, and we're going to dive into some stakes races from the weekend. So you guys ready?
Let's do it.
Ready.
All right, let's start it. So Eclipse. I guess in two sentences, American Pharoah, unanimous, no surprise there. Songbird, not unanimous. Is that a surprise?
Well, I mean, it's not a surprise insofar as you always get wacky votes. I mean, there are a lot of voters. I don't know who half these people are, and I mean, I think a lot of them. There's, is it right? No. Is it that much of a surprise? Not really.
Well, Marcus, I'm gonna let that lead us into the question that I have for both of you guys, which is the Eclipse Award is, I think, and I don't know why they do this, but my take is they're deliberately vague about the voting criteria. What they say is the horse had to run at least once in North America,
right?
In the calendar year, in the year you're voting for, and they have to fit the category. So no matter how much you like American Pharoah, you can't vote for him as 3-year-old filly. But aside from that, they don't tell you weight graded stakes this way, or it's a dirt category versus a turf one unless it's specific in the category. So is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Is it time now for the Eclipse to maybe say, look, let's be a little more specific about the criteria for certain awards, or is this vagueness part of what makes it good because the voters can interpret it however they want?
Well, I think it's fine. I wouldn't want to have it over-defined, and I think if you start, a grade 1 is a grade 1, yes, but we all know that all grade 1s are not created equal, and I think that informed voters take enough time and know enough about the sport to make distinctions between particular races and to have opinions about interpreting kind of the bare accomplishments of a horse in terms of graded stakes victories. What I would like, you mentioned the one start in North America. I mean, what should be more clearly defined is what to do with the starts outside America. I mean, I think Golden Horn is a good example from this year. He made one start in America, so if he's to be evaluated on the merits of that one start, it's absurd that he would be an Eclipse Award finalist because he finished third in the Breeders' Cup Turf.
Right.
And that's how I look at it. I mean, you look at that one race, but what do you do with the rest of his year? Because then does that one foothold that he has in North America open up his entire year to inspection? Because if that's the case, then he should have been a finalist for Horse of the Year from what he did in overseas. I mean, I don't think it's meant to be that way. I think it's meant to be a North American award, and I think that should be clarified. You can only consider the horse on the basis of their one start, and in which case Golden Horn shouldn't have been a finalist.
Marcus, you're not leaving me anything to say because you're nailing all these points so well. The one point that I'll make pursuant to your point about Golden Horn is, and folks out there might not know this, we did talk about it on the show last week, when we receive the sort of material from the Eclipse Award, our ballots, if you will, past performances are included. And it's notable to me that, for example, when you're looking at Lady Eli's PP, you're not seeing her 2-year-old form in there, suggesting
Exactly.
she's to be evaluated only on the merits of her 3-year-old form. But whereas for the Europeans with one run, they're still sending the whole PPs of the horses. I think that should change, and they should only send the one run of a horse like Found or a horse like Golden Horn, just to make it abundantly clear that this is what we're supposed to be voting on. And I agree with your point. I don't think it's necessarily necessary to define every award to the nth degree, but I think that's such a major thing. And I couldn't have said it better with the idea that forget Turf Horse of the Year. If you're looking at his European form, he should have been a Horse of the Year finalist.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I actually tweeted it out. What about Glenn Eagles? I mean, if he qualifies by making one start in North America, isn't he a player for 3-year-old male based on what he did overseas? If you're going to take the overseas, he's at least as good.
Too. I mean,
or Legatissimo, Legatissimo is another one.
I really think they should. I really think that they should define that and write out the races that didn't take place here. And Pete, that's a great suggestion. If you don't even include the past performances, then you don't befuddle people who aren't so clear on what kind of should be considered.
Yeah. Well, and so I think as it relates to the Euros, I completely agree. There's another debate, and I think no category this year summed it up better than female sprinter.
Sure.
And I like the way the voting went, and Marcus, I think you and I are in agreement, which is there's about 4 or 5 different fillies or mares that could have qualified and could have won that award. None of them stood out. Therefore, there was no wrong, as it were, vote or no real right vote. It was based on the way the voters themselves determined their criteria and punched the ballots accordingly. And I personally am glad that they're not saying weight graded stakes X amount, or it's primarily a dirt award, or one thing or another. I'm glad that they let the voters make their own decision and make their own votes. And it's why it was such a close vote, and it's why even with La Verdad winning, it's still a little bit controversial, because look, she didn't win a grade 1. And there are many that hold that against her.
Well, I mean, winning isn't everything to me, and I have no problem seeing losses in a very positive light as well. But I mean, to me, it's like what I couldn't get too excited about this category at all, because how can you quibble with? Sure, if you're taking some off the wall horse who didn't do anything, that's one thing, but any of these horses that were in the conversation, I mean, they're separated by infinitesimal, sorts of characterizations. And what's the point of getting all worked up about that? I mean, to a larger point, part of the issue is that there are so few top-class races for female sprinters, so you can have kind of a void in the division. I think that it's a bogus Eclipse category, personally. I don't like it. I think that it causes further complications. At least with like filly and mare turf, there are a lot more opportunities for a horse to assert herself throughout the course of the year. I think that if a female sprinter is going to win a championship, then she should run against boys. That's happened a lot in the past. This is one kind of race where it works out that fillies can hold their own. And if you want to be considered for championship or honors, then run an open grade 1 sprint races.
And I think we can probably change the name of that award to female dirt sprinter also, to be honest. I mean, even though that kind of goes against what I was saying, as I think about it a little more, it's like if Lady Shipman's not going to get recognized for that campaign, then I guess she could have won one more race, but it does make me wonder if it's kind of a weird category anyway, and then it seems to me like you can only win it one way. I don't know. Maybe Marcus' idea is just get rid of the category and eliminate the problem.
What filly and mare turf sprints are going to be? I mean, there just aren't any important races in that division at all. So then you're left to try to figure out how to interpret these listed races. Who'd speed and what would have happened if some of the other horses would have. Maybe she was better. She ran a bang-up race in the Breeders' Cup. I mean, I can't fault her. I voted her in the top 3 for the Eclipse. But I mean, again, I don't have any problem with anybody who voted for, but I don't feel like a grave injustice was done.
No,
there.
no, need
No,
me.
not at all.
I was just saying,
Yeah.
it's like it makes me wonder what if it is de facto that, maybe call it that. Who did you vote for in the category, Marcus?
I voted for La Verdad. I mean, I held my nose, but I just thought from start to finish, she lost the Breeders' Cup, but I thought she ran a good race. I mean, yeah, Wavell Avenue beat her, but really, that horse just look at the whole year. It's not like this was some, stupendous horse who, was pointed to the spot all year and just got a late start. I mean, she wasn't anywhere close to being a top mare at the start of the year, and she got good at the right time. And God bless her, she ran a good race. But just because it happened to be the Breeders' Cup where she peaked, I'm not going to, I can't say that she was the best horse throughout the year. I mean, I thought La Verdad's campaign from start to finish was better. And then I know the race didn't count because it was in 2016, but the way she ran the other day, when they brought her back again, she asserted her superiority. I think I don't have a problem with her winning at all, but I have a problem in a way with her being a champion. I mean, she's not a champion in the same way that a lot of these other horses are champions. She's a champion because there's this kind of artificial category where people had to vote for someone.
Yeah.
That's a fair point.
And then that was another thing I tweeted. I said every female dirt sprinter this year was, and I said exactly what you said, Marcus, was a hold your nose vote, which is why I went with Lady Shipman. She was the only one, but I can understand why anybody would vote elsewhere because she didn't win the graded stakes. It's
And don't
more I
get me
think
wrong. When I say hold my nose, I have respect for these horses. These are good horses. Just that they didn't. I couldn't imagine anyone voting for any of these horses and saying this was a great horse, a clear champion.
Right. I mean, more and more, maybe it makes sense, and I don't know if it's we just determined there's maybe a don't award, maybe that becomes an option. I mean, if there was an option in this category, not just to abstain, but to say this award should not be given out to any individual, I think there might have been a lot of people that would have checked that box. I know I would have.
Yeah.
NTRA has a lot of tables to sell. They got a lot of tables to sell at the Eclipse Awards.
What about the human awards? The human awards are even worse.
Yeah.
Owner, trainer, breeder, jockey. I mean, are they counting stats? Are they quality over quantity? What degree of quality? I mean, do people go back and look up the grade ones that different people won? I mean, there's absolutely this, and this is open to all sorts of interpretation. I mean, you could talk about like a breeder who bred 3 horses, and 2 of them were great. And is that was that dumb luck, or does that make a championship breeder? I mean, these are really amorphous categories, and there are a lot of times there aren't any good answers here either.
No, it's true. All right, well, I think we've covered enough on the Eclipse unless there's anything else we wanted to talk about there.
Just want to say how happy I am that Castellano won. I think that was the right call, and
I agree with that.
Yeah, very happy to see it.
Me too. I was also surprised at how the apprentice jockey voting went. I thought, especially on the podcast,
who won? I don't even know.
Tyler Gaffalione won quite easily over Eric Cancel. Just our voting on the podcast last week, Pete, when we were talking about our votes, and everybody I've talked to had Cancel on top, and so it wasn't even close. I think Gaffalione had more than twice the votes for Cancel, so that one was a little surprising to me.
I think again it comes.
Wins?
Oh, you go ahead, Marcus. I'll chime in
Who had
after.
more wins?
It might have been Gaffalione.
Yeah, Gaffalione. When you look at the raw stats, I think it again comes down to the idea of what a lot of the voters have in front of them. They're sort of voting based on what they have in front of them. And when you just look at the raw stats, Gaffalione, is a very logical choice. I think it takes sort of, in my opinion, no offense to anybody, going to the next level and sort of seeing the difference, in my view, of what stats are earned at AAA versus the major leagues. And when you view the two in that light, in my opinion, Cancel became the better choice. But
even then, I mean, I think there are very few people who are truly qualified to even vote in this category, because you have to have watched these people. I mean, what if there's a great apprentice who started in the middle of the year, who's just like a superior rider, but they're at they change tracks or something, and they struggle to get tracks, and they catch fire, and they got no stats. But if you watch them, you see that. I mean, I think this is the one category where more than any other, people just look at the win total, and whoever won the most races wins. And that's really, I mean, you might as well give it to the agent at that point.
Right.
It's a fair point. And when I heard Eric Wing talk about this on the podcast last week, with the degree that he was paying attention to the various apprentices around the country, I'll be honest with you, Marcus, I didn't feel qualified to be a voter compared to the level of knowledge that he had.
I didn't vote. Unless there's somebody I know particularly who I've seen, I'm just not, I don't have time to go back and watch them ride 100 times and see who they rode for and what opportunities they had. I abstain in this category.
Oh, that's interesting. And I might be tempted to do that in future, honestly. It's a fair point. I mean, you need to really vote for the human awards right. I think in most instances, you have to do a level of digging that's going to take an awful lot of time. And I'd like to say that I have those hours to devote to it, but if you can't find them, abstaining is always an option.
Right. I mean, I feel like I can. There's enough texture and complexity in my understanding of the owner, breeder, trainer, and jockey that I can make those judgments. But I know I don't have that in apprentice. I mean, almost all the years I don't have that.
All right, well, let's move on. We got some other stuff to cover here, Pete. Before we dive into some of the stakes races from this last weekend, why don't we do a little bit on tournament talk? We're getting close to the NHC.
Real quick. It's next week. I fly out there next Tuesday. Matt Bernier's going to be out there as well. We're going to be providing all kinds of coverage. We're going to come up with some kind of clever podcast to do. Haven't quite figured out how we're going to do that yet, but we'll do something fun from out there. We had a good block of people went in from NHC qualifying, the final online qualifier last weekend. I have some coverage of that up on the blog. We had a friend of the show, Bill Sherman, do something pretty darn impressive on DRF qualify last weekend, where he won both ends of the doubleheader for the Ultimate Betting Challenge, won himself 2 seats that would normally cost $4,500. He'll be down at Santa Anita playing in that contest, which is going to be held jointly between Gulfstream and Santa Anita on March 19th to 20th. I had a little chat with Bill that you can read about on DRF.com right now. And then the other news from the Eclipse Awards was John O'Neill won his Eclipse Award for winning last year's NHC. Unfortunately, John has been ill and he sent a friend to pick up the award for him with some kind words, and is going to be saving his strength, and hopefully, it sounds like, will be coming out next week to the NHC to defend his title. I have a call scheduled with John for later today. I'm going to have an interview with him, hopefully, and have a piece up on the website, drf.com, tomorrow. Hopefully something in the paper later this week. Get an update on how he's doing. One of the good guys, John O'Neill, and very curious to track his attempt to become the first 2-time winner of the NHC. So as always, just follow along on drf.com with my blogs for all the latest tournament news, and you can follow me on Twitter as well at @LoomsBoldly. It's going to be a lot of fun next week out in Las Vegas.
All right. Well, I know I will not be there, but I'll be certainly following along, and I'll be available, and I'll be sending out my thoughts and angles and whatnot. So
you'll be covering the mandatory races.
Maybe if I see anything that jumps out, I'll send something along.
Yeah, cool.
All right. Well, let's dive into the stakes races from the weekend. We had 4 that we covered on the podcast last Friday. 3 of them were at Fairgrounds, and then we also had the Sunshine Millions Turf at Gulfstream Park. Marcus, I know you follow Fairgrounds in particular quite closely. Based on what you saw there on Saturday, any really impressive performances or anything to take away from those races?
I think so. I mean, the McCombs is in the Glamour division, 3-year-old colt, and I'm often a LeCompte skeptic, but I liked the race this year, and I liked the winner, Mo Tom. I really think he's got some upside still, even though he ran several times at 2. He's a late running closer, and that carries with it its own inherent issues. But I think he I think he ran his best race, and I don't think he was trained especially hard for it. And he's tall and he's a little bit on the skinny side, but he gets to stay at home, doesn't have to ship a lot, so he's got every chance to continue developing, putting on weight, getting in a good pattern. And I think there's a lot more to come from this horse. I mean, I really like a lot of things that he did in the race. He kept up better than he had a couple times early, and he made 2 moves. He's got a sharp turn of foot, and he really finishes off his races with a lot of verve and energy. And on his stam side of his pedigree, he's out of a Rubiano mare, but if you look a little deeper, he's got all kinds of stamina influences. I think he'll have no trouble stretching out 9 furlongs and beyond. So he was good. He's he's the obvious source, having won by a couple of lengths out of the race, and he's the one I'm interested in seeing going forward. Although I do think Uncle Walter, who was third, has a little chance to improve. And then the International Star was really good in the Louisiana Stakes. I mean, that was only a $75,000 listed race, but it's way stronger race than that. It's a solid grade 3 class race. And this horse really ran a sharp race. Eagle, who was second, ran well too. They had a long way back to the third horse. And that was a pretty fast race. And then the third horse, stage play, the 3-year-old filly, I thought she ran decently, and I think that she could build on that. And Chocolate Ride in the Colonel Bradley wasn't his best race. I think there were some things against him that day. He still won, galloped out in front. He loves the Fairgrounds turf course, and he's a really good horse too. I mean, for a January card where it's supposed to be the third best multi-stakes day of the meet, I thought it was above average, top to bottom.
I thought it was interesting that Giroux suggested in the article, in the recap, which I don't think was you, Marcus, was it? You didn't recap the Chocolate Ride race, did you?
No, that was Bob Fortis, yeah.
He got a quote from Giroux saying he thought Chocolate Ride might be good enough to be a Grade 1 winner at some point this year, which surprised me at first. But when I went back and looked at the PP, though, and saw that there the preponderance of triple-digit buyer figures, he only earned a 95 on Saturday, but as you pointed out, maybe there were some things against him. I was curious if you thought that was maybe a realistic goal, or if that might be stretching it a little bit far with...
Well, if you look at the North American turf horses, I think it's totally realistic. He beat Slumber in the Muniz last year, and say what you want about Slumber, but he was an established Grade 1 level turf horse last year.
Good point.
In the U.S. The question for Chocolate Ride is if he can carry his form outside of Fairgrounds. He ran in the Turf Classic, and there were some things against him that day. I think he might have been a little bit over the top, and he was kind of hounded on the lead. And
he got hurt too.
Yeah, well, he might have gotten hurt. I don't think he was badly hurt. He was light, for one thing. He was light all winter, and he has these crumbly feet that they were always trying to hold together. And I think probably they just gave him time to put on some weight and to get his feet in better shape. They are in better shape now. So yeah, he could. I think they're gonna. There's talk of pointing him to the race at Keeneland. I guess it's called the Makers 47 mile now, which would preclude a start in the Muniz. So he could run next month in the Fairgrounds Handicap, then wait till April and run in the Makers 47 mile. I don't think that's a bad plan at all, because that race is not going to come up strong. How many solid Grade 1 horses are ready to run in a turf mile in April? The question there is, what kind of course it's going to get, because, the theory that they had and the connections had was, the course was called yielding. I think it was definitely on the good side of yielding, but it had more give than the races he ran on last year when he ran so well, and in November when he almost set a course record again. He likes it firmer than that. So,
that's a chance.
If he gets a firm course in the right spot, I think he can definitely win a great spot.
And I think for him, isn't it all going to probably come down to pace, right? He's sort of the rare USA turf horse that likes to do his running on the front end, has been able to settle a little bit in the past, but you catch him in some paceless scenario on his best day, and who knows, right?
Yeah, I think he's pretty tractable, actually. I know he's been forward a lot, and he was ridden to the lead from inside the other day. But I think he can settle pretty comfortably. I think there were circumstances that forced him to the lead there, and I've seen him I've been at his best. He has a good turn of foot and a good finish too. That's what makes him a dangerous horse. He does have pace, but he can really finish off of a decent pace too. I hope that his feet stay together and he can get to be on the skinny side. So hopefully he maintains his weight and comes out of Fairgrounds this year in better shape than he went into it, which he should. He had a long break. His campaign is geared to be good through the early summer at least.
There were a few fun angles in the Lecomte. How about that Uncle Mo trifecta, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah, crazy. Well, I mean, when he has 80% of the starters in the race, that's surprising. I can't believe how many of these horses are running around right now. I mean, even if he was bred to 500 mares, which he may have been, it's still kind of remarkable how many of the horses are pinning through their conditions and getting into stakes this time of year. I don't know what I think of him as a sire, but just the proliferation of them is amazing.
And I do notice he's a sire who really seems to stamp his runners. You notice a lot of them
plain base.
Yeah, they have that low head carriage, and they remind me of him so much. And then you have the Tom and Gail Benson having the exacta. What are your thoughts about the other Tom horse, the second
Tom's
place?
Ready.
Yeah. What do you think of his prospects?
I think he's a nice horse, but I think he's inherently a miler. I mean, maybe he'll prove me wrong, but he should have won the allowance race he was in December, and he hung late the last 50 yards, and then he ran with Mo Tom for a furlong and a half in the stretch. Then Mo Tom blew his doors off the last 70 yards.
One thing I'll say, tell me if you think please tell me if you think this is incorrect, but I thought going through the charts that the dirt races at Fairgrounds on Saturday were playing a little bit to closers and a little bit to the outside, suggesting that maybe, while he did get, knocked pretty good in the stretch by Mo Tom there, that maybe making that the earlier run into the race that went to a deeper closer, maybe he did a little bit more running than it looked like Tom's Ready.
Well, I thought it was a fair track. I didn't think there was any bias to it. It was a pretty fast pace, but you do have to consider there was like a 10 or 12 mile an hour wind that was a headwind in the home stretch and helping, carrying them along down the backside, which is why there were a number of solid half-mile paces. And Tom's Ready was on the outside, stalking most of the trip. And, yeah, he made an early move. And the one thing that Sean Bridgman said after the race was if he had ridden him before, and he hadn't, that was the first time he was on, he would have waited longer because he has a sharp turn of foot, and he used it too soon. But that kind of gets back to my original thought in that he's not going to have a sustained run. I mean, he is by more than ready. I mean, he's by Mo Tom, but is he out of a more than ready mare? I think that's what it is.
I think there's some. That sounds right. That there's some more than ready.
In any case, we've seen him run any number of times. He was at Saratoga. He ran there. He ran in Kentucky, and yeah, maybe if they wait a little longer, he can do a little better. But I don't know. I'm going to be surprised if the longer distances from here on out improve him. You get a mile on the 16th next time. It's 40 yards difference or so, but. He's got some quality to him. We'll see what happens. I mean, he's trained by Dallas Stewart. He's bound to run second in the Kentucky Derby.
We've seen that movie before.
Yeah.
Congratulations, by the way, to Mary Rampolini, who gave out that cold 29-20 exacta on the DRF Players podcast last week. That was kind of cool. I also wanted to ask you about the little bit of drama we had in that race, Marcus, beforehand with Rachel Alexandra's brother, Dolphus.
Yeah.
What went down there?
Well, the first thing that went down was he was 17-1, and I thought he would be like half that price at least. So this horse was totally dead on the board. What happened was he wears earplugs, and there was some earplug issue too. The jockey Brian Hernandez, was trying to put his earplug back in, and he was being a little cantankerous behind the gate, and he reared up and he sat down, and Hernandez came off. He turned around. He took like 5 steps, and he got corralled right along the rail. They caught him. This whole thing is, this is a matter of 7 seconds, and they immediately scratched him. I mean, he was scratched, boom, just like that. You know, and you know, scratched by the stewards on the advice of the track veterinarian, and his trainer Joe Sharp was not happy about that. He said that there was nothing wrong with the horse, and his issue was, he said, and I know this is true, they didn't jog him for soundness or anything, and you know, he thought that they didn't follow the usual protocol as far as scratching, like maybe they just did it in too much of a hurry. You know, you see horses break through the front of the gate all the time and get, you know, reloaded. Even horses that'll run off for an eighth of a mile, if they're caught, they'll run. So, I mean, I think he might have a point there. I don't know that anything had happened that the horse was fine. I don't know that the bettors were being protected necessarily either, because he hadn't thrown a prolonged fit and he hadn't gotten loose for long. So that was unfortunate. I mean, the horse is ready to run, evidently. You know, he says he's going to send him to Florida to run. I thought he would. I thought he might run well on Saturday. I thought, you know, he was too close to the pace, and when he stretched out, ran 2 races in quick succession. Got a lot out of his first race, which was kind of a close sprint. So, I mean, I think there's some talent there. I don't know where we're going to see it now.
My fear would be that a horse like that, the one thing I would really be expecting him to have, based on the pedigree, would be some class. So to be a gate scratch at all, I agree. Sounds like it was probably a bit premature, but I still would expect that horse to have a little more class, to not be behaving that way. And you throw that in with the sort of almost suspicious lack of betting. I don't know. I mean, I'd love to be proven wrong. It'd be great to see kin to Rachel doing well, but might be one that I'll keep my hand out of my pocket from betting on.
Yeah, I mean, he acted up in the paddock. He was kind of keyed up on the day. I mean, he's supposedly a really laid back horse who doesn't get too excited most of the time. But I don't know. I just don't know how good he is. I mean, I think he's okay, but he's got a long way to go to be anywhere near the top of the division.
So I've read a lot on Twitter, people sort of just crabbing the Lecomte in general. But the fact is, as just a prep race, but the fact is some really nice horses have run in this race over the years. Oxbow, you know, classic winner. Ron the Greek. Frisian Fire, who was a Derby favorite. Hard Spun, won the race. So, I mean, good horses can come out of it.
And even the last 2 years, you know, I mean, International Star and Vickers in Trouble, those are, I mean, International Star didn't make the Derby, but he won the Louisiana Derby, and Vickers in Trouble got annihilated into the first turn of the Derby. I didn't like him in the race, but you can't say that he failed to contend because he never had a chance. Like I said, I started out being skeptical of Lecomte, and there have been horses that have won that I really didn't like at all, but I think this year's race was decent. I got like an 88 buyer, and I think that the numbers were fairly straightforward probably on Saturday. I wouldn't have been surprised to see the number come back something in the low 90s. I thought he ran pretty decently, and people have knocked the come-home time, but like I said, there was a headwind on the day. I think he finished just fine. I like Motown going forward. I acquired him in a fantasy horse racing auction last night.
Oh, nice.
I put my money where my mouth is.
I like it. It was faster than the comparable races right at a mile 70 on the card. So that's...
Well, there was 2 other then, earlier, like 3 races earlier, that it was a few ticks faster than that. And I think the horse that won that, a horse named Wacom, is a pretty solid horse. I think the time was fine, really. I think it was a solid race. I mean, we'll see we don't have to guess forever on these things. We'll see before too long, but I think it's going to be productive.
And then, if nothing else, it could be a significant Derby prep result in the form boost it offers, both more spirit and air force, right?
Well, I'll tell you about, I agree. And I think often the KJC is not that great.
The race
it looks okay at the time. It's kind of like the Remsen of the Midwest. But this year's might have been all right. And in it, you know, if you watch that race, Mo Tom, he might have won. He got through on the inside, and he didn't have any trouble going through the initial hole. But then, you know, past the 8th pole, suddenly he hard. He changed his lead really hard. Like, sometimes the lead changes don't really make that much difference in the horse's momentum, but this horse stopped himself, and it cost him. He would have been right there with the top two if he wouldn't have done that. And the theory is that the track was really wet that night. It was dark, and he might have looked down and seen, like, who knows what he saw, but he could have been unsure of his footing. But I thought that made a big difference in his finish that night, and he might have been closer to those other two horses. And I think are good. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing Aeroforce coming back. I think he could be a really good horse.
Do we know the plans? Either of you guys, have you heard the plans for More Spirit and Aeroforce, where we're going to expect to see them next?
Isn't More Spirit going to run in the Bob Lewis?
That would be logical.
Mm-hmm.
And I would assume Aeroforce is not ready to run this weekend, so I would assume he'd come back in the Fountain of Youth, or maybe he's going Tampa route. Kathy sometimes does that.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we'll keep an ear to the ground. Lots of good Triple Crown prep information on the DRF site. Jay Privman does his recaps. You can pick up a lot of stuff in the articles, like the one that Marcus wrote for the Lecomte, or the stuff that Jay is writing, and you can just litter your PPs with interesting notes based on the comments of folks like them who are out there on the track, hanging out with these animals, and or just watching the replays and looking at the times from a different perspective. You can pick up all kinds of good stuff that you can slug right into your PPs via Formulator.
So, gentlemen, I know we're about out of time here, but do we have a couple minutes to talk a couple of the graded stakes, or not graded stakes, Sunshine Million stakes races from Gulfstream on Saturday?
I got about 3 minutes.
Marcus, you good?
Yeah.
What did you think of Mexicoma and I guess as well Mr. Jordan in the Sunshine Millions Classic? Mexicoma won. He got a 106 buyer. Mr. Jordan a 104, a long way back to third place. And my old buddy Catholic Cowboy. Do you see this as being, look, it's Gulfstream, and what happens at Gulfstream stays at Gulfstream, or are either of these players in the Classic division going forward this year?
I think Mexicoma is like a grade 3 horse.
Yeah.
He got a good number. He liked him, but I like the way he ran on CD with 6-5. I thought he'd win. I don't see them. I see it as the horse was pointed to this rich race that's got heavy restrictions on it. He ran well. Good for him. If he runs against grade 1 horses, I think he'll get drunk.
I've always kind of liked him as a horse, though, I will say. I mean, it is hard to elevate him too much based on one run at Gulfstream. I haven't done like the proper race review on the race yet. But I will say that he's always a horse that he caught my eye early on, and I wouldn't rule him out as having a little more upside. That's about as nice as what I could say is about.
He's 5 now, right?
Yeah. He's had a couple long breaks. Right.
I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree though. He had 10 minutes on the Triple Crown Trail at one point. He ran one big race, and he's had talent. He showed talent from a long time back. So who knows?
Right. That's what makes me wonder. I mean, I know from the beginning they always liked him. He showed some talent, and then he got hurt. I think he had a year layoff, and then he had another long layoff in there. I just wonder if this is now as a 5-year-old, a horse that had shown talent and had some issues is now maybe getting good. We'll see.
Before we go, guys, I haven't even seen the race yet, but did either of you see the Smarty Jones and maybe have a comment on that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't think Taves on Ice is going to win the Derby.
Well, here, this is something I said after the race. Bob Baffert doesn't ship for frequent flyer miles, but he may ship to prove to his owners that some of their horses are just one-turn sprinters, which is, I think, maybe what was going on with Taves on Ice there. I hope he goes back to one turn.
What about the winner? What about the winner in there?
I don't like him going forward that well.
Yeah, I mean, he was good. I don't know if this is going to be a key race. And you mentioned Mary Rampolini with the straight exact and the Lecomte. Well, she was all over discreetness there as well. So
you should just retire. The horse that I like is the third, Synchrony.
Yeah.
He was pretty far back. The short stretch, mile didn't help him because he was just getting going.
Yeah.
He finished best of anyone, I think, and he had 2 good races. He beat Uncle Walter second time out. It's his third start, first time going 2 turns. I think he can improve off that race. Might be one to watch next time.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. It's been fun, even though it was a little bit of a shorter one today. I think we covered a lot and had a lot of good discussions. So,
yeah, I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
As always,
we'll bring you back for these other preps coming up down in your part of the world, Marcus. If we can twist your arm.
Anytime. Risen Star Day next month. Let's do it.
All right. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, and Pete, I'll let you take it away.
May you win all your photos.